Oysters have an incredible ability to filter and remove pollutants from water and can have a huge impact on the health of their environment. But it is estimated that up to 85% of oyster reefs have been lost worldwide. I'm Juliana Schatz on the East Coast of America to witness a movement that is trying to reverse this trend and to get these vital habitats flourishing again. Oyster reef restoration projects are happening in states across the U.S. Dr. Ray Grizzle is one of the foremost oyster experts in New Hampshire.
Hello, Juliana.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
It's gorgeous here.
Yes, you definitely cannot beat our location. The oysters, they are very important to the estuary. They provide habitat for many other creatures. Hundreds of species of invertebrates and plants typically live on them. In the process of getting their food, they pump water through their shells and remove particles.
Completely new concept to me that oysters clean the water.
And we have some tanks set up inside that can demonstrate. Now, I've set up 2 tanks here, about 25, 30 live oysters in it. The one on the left has a similar amount of dead oysters. And the idea here is over time, you'll be able to see how they physically clear the water.
How long does it take to?
Well, it should go down within about an hour. You should see a very visible difference between this tank and that tank.
The oyster's ability to filter water of algae, sediments, bacteria, and excess nitrogen can have a huge impact on water quality, which in turn can benefit the entire ecosystem. But oyster populations worldwide are declining dramatically.
To my knowledge, in most cases, it's some combination of disease, continued harvesting in the face of this disease, and then water quality, water pollution issues.
Since 2000, Ray and his team have launched 17 oyster restoration projects aimed at rebuilding oyster populations in New Hampshire.
Welcome aboard the Riviera Queen.
All right. It's
That's
a regal
the name of our boat, yes. And so basically, we'll take a short trip out there. We restored 2-acre restoration site on the east side, and that's what we're heading for.
Previously,
Yes.
the population of oysters could filter out this whole bay in a week.
A week or so.
And now it takes
well
a
over
year.
a year. The diminishing of a process at that level moves all the way up the food chain with its ramifications.
In order to grow to maturity, young oysters need to attach to something solid, usually the shell of another oyster. To encourage this growth, Ray's team has placed tons of oyster shells collected from local restaurants onto the bed of the estuary.
Basically, what we constructed, the beginnings of this, what we call a mini oyster reef, it's 10 meter in diameter. We'll drop the patent tongs and see what it looks like today. Yep, go. Oh yeah, there's some oysters there.
That's a good one. I have to advertise this as a workout.
Okay. All right. This could have been one of the first ones we put out. The look on top of the shell. There's a smaller one that sat on this shell.
So these are the dead oysters that serve as the habitat.
Yep.
And this little guy,
Yeah.
new oyster.
It's doing what it's supposed to do,
So
basically.
these came here naturally, on their own.
Almost certainly.
Well, now, would you quantify this as success?
This particular restoration site is definitely successful, but the long-term goal is to restore as many as the estuary in its present condition will be able to sustain.
250 miles away from the serenity of New Hampshire's Great Bay, the setting for another oyster restoration project couldn't be more different.
Only in New York.
More than 15 organizations are involved in a New York oyster restoration project, which aims to restore 1 billion live oysters over the next 20 years.
Reports say that when Henry Hudson sailed into Upper New York Harbor, there were 260,000 acres of oyster reefs. And so trillions of oysters, trillions of oysters.
Right.
There are no oysters anymore here. By the early 1900s, they'd all been eaten or dredged out or covered over with sediment or too polluted for larvae to regenerate. We put down 5 oyster reefs in various places throughout this estuary system to see where they did best. The one that we're going to up in Soundview, Bronx, did the very best, and that's why we're going back up there to check on that.
Well, and if you can grow them here, I mean, this is about as challenging as it gets for a location, right?
Exactly. So this is set up, modeled after a commercial oyster farm.
500,000 oysters in here?
The young oysters are placed in floating cages in a protected bay until they're large enough to be released onto the reefs.
See, that's the reef that you want. Can you see how, in terms of habitat, in terms of velocity of water, how these massive reefs of this is going to have such a difference? It's going to have a massive impact on the ecosystem.
A blue crab.
Blue crab, but you see, this is.
But that's the enemy right now, right?
Yes. He eats young oysters. He eats young oysters, but it's fine. He's a predator in the system. You take your glove off and try that.
No, thanks. So would oysters in this area have a positive impact?
Well, so that's the hope. Waiting to get back results in terms of water quality impacts, but what we do definitely see is increase in habitat.
The young oysters are taken from the protected bay to one of the man-made reefs in the Bronx River, where a team of students and volunteers release them into the water. Here, the oysters can grow and reproduce, leading to a self-sustaining oyster population.
So we've just arrived into the Bronx River, where the largest and most successful oyster reef is. But look at that one full of oysters, that's good. So walk this way.
I don't know what he's doing, but...
Oh no! Are you okay?
Yeah, you just pulled me over the tree.
I'm so sorry. I pulled you over.
You didn't get that on film, I hope.
No, not at all.
And you're going to go to the line and then try to spread it 1 meter back.
And what about the greater environmental hopes that you have? I mean, this is a part of a larger project all along the east coast of the United States and a part of a greater movement worldwide.
From our perspective, if we can restore New York Harbor to be a more bountiful, more abundant ecosystem, then no one else has any excuse.